Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. And I want to talk about a topic that we have discussed quite a bit here on the Aaron Torres pod over the last couple months, and that is college sports realignment. Now, this weekend was actually a big weekend for realignment because July 1st marked the start of the new era of the Big 12. As of midnight Eastern, July 1st, Central Florida, BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati are members of the Big 12. And oh, by the way, overall 12 teams switch conferences one to another. As interesting as that is, though, I want to switch gears because obviously the big conversation is what's next. We know the Big 12 is at least set going forward. We know Texas and Oklahoma are going to leave for the SEC next year. We know UCLA and USC are going to leave for the Big 10 next year. But does the Big 12 have another round of expansion in their sights? And can the Pac-12 survive? Those are the questions going forward. And I actually think we got an answer to one of them. And it is a really, really bad sign for the present and the future of the Pac-12. Let me explain what happened this weekend. So in addition to those 4 teams leaving for the Big 12, I have said from the beginning, I've said June 30th is a very important date in the next round of realignment. If you've listened to the show, we've talked about it again and again. That's because San Diego State, which has been not only coveted by the Big 12, it is very much the Pac-12's #1 expansion candidate. San Diego State had to get out of the Mountain West by June 30th, or they would have to pay a $34 million exit fee. Once you get to July 1st, you're still in the conference. You want to leave, you can leave, but it costs you $34 million. So they had to be out of the conference by June 30th. And oh, by the way, a couple weeks ago, we talked about this. There was this crazy back and forth where it was starting to become clear that they were not going to have an invite to the Pac-12 or the Big 12. And they actually went to the Mountain West about 2 weeks ago and said, hey, can we get an extension on that June 30th date? The Mountain West tells them to kick rocks. The Mountain West says, actually, we're taking this as your resignation. And then San Diego State had to go back and say, no, we're not leaving. We just wanted to know if we wanted to leave, if we could get an extra month without having to pay all that money. Mountain West says no. And of course, over the last couple of days, June 30th hit. San Diego State has no invite to the Big 12, no invite to the Pac-12. And on Friday, reports surfaced, Pete Thamel, ESPN, all the normal ones, The Athletic, Brett McMurphy, etc., that San Diego State had officially let the Mountain West know that they intend to come back. Now, there's an interesting question of whether the Mountain West is going to accept them or not, but that's another question. But San Diego State, for at least now, for the foreseeable future, is off of the realignment chessboard. That is a big piece of news, and let me take it a step further. I think that is a huge piece of news when it comes to what the future of the Pac-12 looks like, and I'll take it a step further. I think this is one more piece of information that leads me to believe I don't know if the Pac-12 is going to survive beyond the 2024 season. I hate to say it. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know if I'm going to be at this point. And so let me explain why, right? So the bottom line is, obviously, I think most people, if you're listening to this show, you kind of know what's going on in the Pac-12, right? USC and UCLA leave. And for the last year, they have been trying to put together a media rights deal because their media rights deal ends at the end of the 2023-24 fiscal year, meaning that as you listen to this, it is July of 2023. A year from now, no one in the Pac-12 currently, except for USC and UCLA, has a TV deal. Like there is no piece of contractual paper binding any of those 10 remaining Pac-12 schools to each other. And so the last couple months has been this weird back and forth where it's kind of obvious that there aren't a lot of suitors for the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 keeps saying, give us a week, give us 2 weeks, give us 3 weeks, give us 4, whatever. We're going to put something together. Well, it is now July 1st, and they still have no deal. Beyond that, and this is where the news of San Diego State comes in, their best expansion candidate is out the door. So San Diego State, if they did not get out before June 30th, it essentially means they are committed to the Mountain West for at least 2 more years, which means that even if they want to go, even if the Pac-12 wants them to go, they can't leave until at least the 2025-2026 school year. That to me is really important, and here's why. Part of what the Pac-12 was negotiating with these TV contracts was, hey, it's not official yet, but you get us, guess what you also get? You get a footprint into the Southern California market because San Diego State's going to come on board. I looked it up, by the way. 23 million people live in Southern California. And even if you want to argue they're not all San Diego State fans, they're not going to tune in. That is an insane number of people that live in the Pac-12 footprint, that there will be no teams in California, in Southern California. And now with San Diego State being stuck in the Mountain West for 2 more years, that just makes the Pac-12 less appealing. You got the 10 schools that are currently there: Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, Washington State, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado. You have Cal, Stanford, and I'm missing one, Utah. You have those 10 schools, but you have no one in Southern California and no way of getting anyone in Southern California going forward. So a TV deal that we already believe to be not only well below the Big Ten and the SEC, but also the Big 12 at this point. Now you missed out on the Southern California market. I cannot emphasize enough how big of a deal this is. And the fact that Pac-12 not only doesn't have a deal, but now the one little carrot that they were dangling was, we're going to have this Southern California market covered with San Diego State. That's gone. And so I bring it up to say, this is just further proof to me. Listen, I'm not a fatalist. I don't root for the worst. I want the best. I love college sports. I live on the West Coast. I want there to be a viable conference in the footprint that I live. But I have to call a spade a spade. And this is just one more thing to me that makes me believe the Pac-12 isn't going to survive. Now, I'll be blunt. I was optimistic earlier this month that, yes, the Pac-12 might lose a team or two, but it would survive. Now I'm starting to question that, because at the end of the day, here's what's coming up. Schools have to decide in the next year, am I going to be able to have a TV contract, or do I need to start looking now? And so keep an eye these next few weeks as we get towards media days. Remember, where did the Texas-Oklahoma news break? SEC media days. And I'm telling you, I think Colorado is the first one, and I think they've had it up to here with the Pac-12. They've waited. They're patient. They've tried to be understanding. They've tried to be considerate. They've tried to see what the Pac-12 has to offer, but they have to make decisions. And here's the thing you need to know about Colorado. They're coached by a guy with a ton of Texas roots, and Coach Prime Deion Sanders. He wants this. The school needs stability. I think they're going to go. I've said all along, I think Arizona could go as well. But now some of those schools that I thought were going to stay, now I'm not so sure. Like if you're Utah, I had heard through the grapevine, Utah was not all that excited about considering the Big 12 because Utah doesn't want to join a conference with BYU. They don't want it to look like, whether it's fair or not, that they are following BYU to the Big 12. I bring it up because Utah might now have to consider the Big 12 if the Big 12 will consider them. Can you really sit around and hope something works out with the Pac-12? Oregon and Washington, do they have to reconsider their stance? They've been waiting for a Big 10 offer that's probably not coming. Do they have to now get in touch with the Big 12? It's crazy. It's wild. And I'll say this, and I've said it 100 times. I hope I'm wrong on this. I hope I'm dead wrong. And I hope that it all gets figured out and that the Pac-12 pulls a rabbit out of their hat. They have a great deal and we can all put this aside. The 10 schools stay there and they add another 1 or 2 via realignment. At the same time, I would not feel good about it. I do not feel good about it. This San Diego State news is way, way bigger than people realize. I think it is a very, very bad sign for the future of the Pac-12.